In the heart of the African savannah, where the golden grasses sway under the breath of the warm breeze, lived a majestic elephant named Tembo. Tembo was known far and wide for his immense size, wisdom, and gentle heart. His tusks, long and curved like ivory crescents, gleamed under the sun, and his skin bore the deep wrinkles of many years of experience. He was the leader of a large herd, a responsibility he carried with both pride and humility. One scorching summer, the savannah was gripped by an unprecedented drought. The rivers dried up, and the once lush landscape turned into a barren expanse of dust and parched soil. Tembo's herd, along with many other animals, struggled to find food and water. The situation grew dire as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. Tembo knew he had to find a solution, not just for his herd, but for all the creatures of the savannah. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson hue across the sky, Tembo called for a council meeting. Elephants from various herds gathered under the ancient baobab tree, a symbol of strength and resilience. Among them were elders with wise eyes and young ones with hopeful hearts. "We must find water," Tembo began, his deep voice resonating through the silence. "Our survival depends on it. I propose we embark on a journey to the mountains in the east. Legends say there is a hidden lake there, fed by underground springs." The elders nodded in agreement, though their faces showed the worry of the long and arduous journey ahead. They knew the path would be fraught with dangers, but they trusted Tembo's leadership and the strength of their unity. The next morning, as the first rays of dawn touched the savannah, the elephants set off on their journey. They moved in a line, a powerful and determined procession, with Tembo leading the way. Other animals watched from a distance, their eyes filled with a mix of hope and desperation. News of the elephants' quest spread quickly, and soon a diverse caravan of creatures began to follow them: zebras, antelopes, and even a few lions, all bound by the same urgent need for water. The journey was long and grueling. The sun blazed mercilessly overhead, and the ground beneath their feet was cracked and unforgiving. Each day, Tembo led his herd through the endless expanse of the savannah, pausing only when absolutely necessary. The nights provided little relief, as the heat lingered and the darkness brought its own dangers. Predators prowled, and the cry of the hyenas echoed through the night. One afternoon, the caravan reached a vast desert, a sea of shifting sands that seemed to stretch into eternity. The elephants, with their large, padded feet, could traverse the desert more easily than the other animals. But as they pressed on, the smaller creatures began to struggle. The zebra's hooves sank into the soft sand, and the antelopes, accustomed to firm ground, found their legs weakening. Tembo noticed their plight. He called for a halt and gathered the leaders of the different animal groups. "We cannot leave anyone behind," he said firmly. "We must find a way to help them cross the desert." After much deliberation, a plan was devised. The elephants would use their strength and size to create a path through the sand. They stomped and compacted the ground, creating a firmer surface for the smaller animals to walk on. It was hard work, and it slowed their progress, but the elephants labored tirelessly, driven by a sense of duty and compassion. As they moved forward, Tembo noticed a young zebra struggling at the back of the group. Its legs were trembling, and it seemed on the verge of collapse. Without a second thought, Tembo gently wrapped his trunk around the zebra and lifted it onto his back. The other elephants followed suit, carrying the weakest animals on their backs or in the shelter of their trunks. It was a slow and painstaking process, but together they managed to traverse the desert. On the other side of the desert, a rocky terrain awaited them. The ground was strewn with sharp stones, and the path ahead was steep and treacherous. But the sight of the distant mountains gave them hope and renewed their determination. They pressed on, their eyes fixed on the peaks that promised water and salvation. After many weeks of arduous travel, the weary caravan finally reached the foothills of the mountains. The air was cooler here, and the landscape began to change. Lush vegetation replaced the barren plains, and the sound of distant waterfalls filled the air. The sight and sound of water invigorated the animals, giving them the strength to continue. Tembo led the way up a narrow, winding path that climbed the mountainside. The journey was still fraught with danger, as loose rocks and sudden drops threatened their progress. But the elephants, with their sure-footedness and strength, guided the other animals safely. As they climbed higher, the vegetation grew denser, and the air became moist and refreshing. Finally, they reached a hidden valley, nestled between the peaks. In the center of the valley was a sparkling lake, its crystal-clear waters fed by numerous springs. The sight was breathtaking, a paradise in the midst of the harsh wilderness. A cheer erupted from the animals, their joy and relief palpable. They rushed to the water's edge, drinking deeply and splashing in the cool, life-giving liquid. Tembo stood back, watching with a sense of fulfillment. They had found the hidden lake, and their journey had not been in vain. For several days, the animals rested and recuperated in the valley. The elephants, true to their nature, continued to help the other creatures. They used their trunks to draw water from the lake, creating small pools for the smaller animals. They uprooted shrubs and trees, providing food and shelter. It was a time of peace and cooperation, a testament to the power of unity and compassion. But Tembo knew their work was not yet done. The lake, though abundant, could not sustain all the animals of the savannah indefinitely. They needed to find a way to share this precious resource with those who had stayed behind. Tembo called another council meeting under the shade of a massive acacia tree. Representatives from each animal group gathered, their eyes filled with gratitude and trust. "We must return to the savannah," Tembo announced. "We cannot keep this place a secret. We need to guide others here and ensure that everyone has access to water." The animals agreed, though the thought of leaving the sanctuary of the valley was daunting. Plans were made to create a system of paths and waypoints marked by landmarks and signs so that others could find their way to the hidden lake. Tembo and a group of volunteers would make the journey back to the savannah, leading the way and spreading the word. The return journey was both a test of endurance and a mission of hope. The animals, now well rested and rejuvenated, moved with a renewed sense of purpose. Tembo, ever the leader, guided them down the mountain and back across the desert, retracing their steps. The journey was still challenging, but the knowledge of the hidden lake and the promise of water spurred them on. As they neared the savannah, the sight of the dry, cracked earth and the desperate animals waiting for their return filled them with a sense of urgency. The news of their success spread like wildfire, and animals began to gather, eager to hear about the hidden lake. Tembo addressed the assembled creatures. "We have found a source of water in the mountains. It is a long and difficult journey, but it is possible. We will lead you there, and together we will ensure that everyone has access to water." A great migration began, led by Tembo and his herd. The journey was organized and methodical, with designated leaders for each group of animals. They followed the paths and waypoints established earlier, moving steadily towards the mountains. Along the way, they encountered many challenges: predators, harsh weather, and difficult terrain, but they faced them together, supporting and protecting one another. As they crossed the desert once more, Tembo's heart swelled with pride and compassion. He saw the determination in the eyes of the animals, their faith in him and in each other. It was a testament to the power of cooperation and the strength of their bond. The sight of the hidden lake brought tears of joy and relief to many eyes. The animals, weary from their journey, drank deeply and rested in the lush valley. It was a new beginning for the savannah, a time of renewal and hope. Tembo and his herd continued to guide new groups of animals to the hidden lake, ensuring that everyone had a chance to survive and thrive. They established a system of sharing and rotation so that the lake's resources were used sustainably. The valley became a sanctuary, a place where animals could find refuge and support. In the evenings, under the light of the stars, the animals would gather and share stories of their journey and their struggles. They celebrated their resilience and the strength of their community. Tembo, though still a leader, became a symbol of wisdom and compassion, a reminder of what could be achieved when they worked together. The drought eventually ended, and the rains returned to the savannah. The rivers flowed once more, and the land blossomed with life. But the hidden lake remained a symbol of hope and cooperation, a place where the animals had learned to help one another and share their resources. Years passed, and the story of Tembo and the hidden lake became a legend, passed down from generation to generation. It was a tale of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond of community. And in the heart of the savannah, where the golden grasses sway under the breath of the warm breeze, the animals lived in harmony, forever grateful for the wisdom and leadership of Tembo, the gentle giant who had shown them the way.